Let's see. I mean, that's actually a good angle. I can see you. How long before you're ready to go?
2 minutes.
Okay. Well, we're live, so that's kind of
really?
neat. Yeah. All right.
Cool. Let me pull it up on Facebook so I can see.
Are you gonna do that? See
Yeah,
if there's any.
I'm gonna mute.
Yeah, definitely mute the output on your.
Testing! Can you hear us? Actually, you can hear us from here. Testing!
Yeah.
It's pretty good. That's a good shot.
All right. Where's my notes? And then I guess I'll pull up a separate screen. Oh, who's watching? Rob. Rob and Heather.
Heather says
You
hi.
guys are not working. Awesome. That was the chair.
No, Josh is.
Alright. Let's see. Gotta be comfortable.
Testing. I'll test that out. Testing.
Yes, is that one working now too?
Yeah, testing.
Whoever is watching right now, can you guys hear us okay?
Testing again. Testing.
How close do I have to hold this thing?
That should be good at that volume.
Alright.
As long as you don't keep the same volume and hold it out here.
Is that not how that works?
Of course not.
Tina says no. Brandon says you sound great.
That should be good at that volume.
Rob says bye. That's awesome. Thanks, Rob.
Okay. Should be good.
Alright. I guess they can hear us. Cool, people. Cool.
We're live.
Alright.
We're rolling on everything.
We're live on the board. You hit record?
Yeah,
Awesome.
We're rocking and rolling.
Welcome back to the podcast, Marc.
Welcome back to the podcast. If you guys don't recognize the voice, like if you're not on the live feed right now because we're doing this podcast live and you're just listening to the podcast as a dedicated listener, which first of all, thank you for dedicating to whatever this is.
How many dedicated listeners do we have?
Like 4.
Okay.
Like 4, including the people that are on the live right now. So if you're just listening to this and you don't recognize the voice, that's Josh Martin. He used to be on the show, and then he...
I'm on the intro, though.
You'll hear his voice on the intro.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Josh, all jokes aside, welcome back to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
I was pleasantly surprised and excited when you texted me and you're like, all right, I'm ready to get back on the podcast. I want to talk a little bit. Let's rock and roll. And I was like, all right, awesome. We quickly set up a time, and that was I think, last night, and here we are now. So
yeah, it's amazing when we get things rolling.
Yeah. So last podcast episode we did was, I'm pretty sure it was episode number 40, and it was on the importance of our Remembrance Day workout that we called it. That was with Marc James.
Yeah.
So we talked
cool
about...
episode. If you haven't listened to it, go back and listen to it. Give it a like and a share.
Yeah, and subscribe if there's a subscribe button, and a review, 5-star review. So we talked about the importance of that Remembrance Day workout, and we haven't really had an episode since then. And so we were really excited to have you on, talk about some things, just kind of give a quick update on how you're doing, talk about CFG a little bit, and just kind of chop it up about whatever we kind of think about.
Whatever direction this goes in.
Yeah. So we have some things we want to talk about, and then we also have the live feed, of course, and maybe at the end, if we have time, we could do like a Q&A or answer questions along the way if anybody says
Yeah, for sure. If anyone's listening in the Facebook group and has questions, definitely start posting them, and if they're appropriate, we will read them. If they're not, we'll ignore them.
Yep. Perfect. Boom. So we'll start out, real simple question, just kind of check in. Josh, how are you doing? How's the family doing? How's it going?
We're doing good, man. This has been a exciting but challenging time for our family, just like, everybody else in the entire world is dealing with. Coronavirus or COVID or whatever you want to call it. But man, it's seemed like it's just gone on for far longer than probably any of us could have ever imagined. But it's honestly been a weird situation for us to be in, because, and this is potentially a offensive thing to say, but not a whole lot has changed for our family and the way that we operate. And so many people that are kind of familiar with the gym know that, I work from home. I mean, all the stuff that gets done at the gym, I'm fortunate and blessed enough to be able to do that from home. So, being locked down didn't really change a whole lot. Really, the only things that's changed differently for our family was, like, I couldn't come here to work out at 9 a.m. like I'm used to. We could go to our church. And then other than that, I mean, that was really the biggest change. So, the family's doing great. Thankfully, we're all healthy. We all still love each other immensely. And that's about all you can ask for right now.
That's good. Some people can't say the same after being in quarantine with their family, so that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, we're used to really spending a lot of time together with the family, so it was, wasn't really a big change for us.
You mentioned that some of the changes were you not being able to come in and work out at 9 a.m., not being able to attend church. What about schooling for the kids? I know you kind of ended with homeschool last year, and then we talked a little bit. You're starting with that this year. You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so, I don't know what I would call what occurred with the school year last year is like, your traditional homeschool, in the sense that, like, the mom or the dad is the teacher or anything. They kind of moved everything virtually online, and man, God bless them. They did the absolute, they being like the school system in general, they did, the best that they could with what they were given, but it was such a challenging time. I mean, they basically had to pivot thousands and thousands of kids to going, to a brick and mortar location, to then delivering some sort of semblance of school online. Excuse me. And then, summertime happened, and, everybody kind of falls into pretty much the same, routine. But, the deeper and deeper that we kind of got into this pandemic, and with everything going on, Mandy and I had a lot of conversations, late into the night about what is the next school year going to look like. And we ultimately set some, very firm boundaries into, what we were going to be okay with and not okay with in terms of the kids going back. And so we made the decision just several weeks ago that we were going to, like you said, actually go into full-time homeschool. So right now we're in the process of having the office, my office, basically completely redone to becoming a homeschool classroom for Jesse and Quinn. Melissa Wright, who obviously goes to the gym here, has her interior design company. She came in and kind of reimagined the whole thing. It's going to be amazing. We just got kind of like the floor left to do, and then the decoration part, which all I do is just kind of nod my head and write a check, which is what I'm most happy to do. But yeah, so we're gonna homeschool the kids this year.
How did Jesse and Quinn like that, the end of the year, kind of, because it was a little more impromptu end of the year last year. It was like, okay, like you said, schools are doing what they pretty much can. Now there's a little bit more planning involved. How did they like that?
How did they like last year, or what we're doing now?
Start with last year, and then I know the first day was yesterday.
Yeah, so last year they were fine. Kids are pretty resilient. The tough part was just, when technology, and it's funny that we're recording a podcast and hoping that it's going live okay, but like when technology gets in the way of like the user experience, it's challenging even for adults. And then you kind of compound that with two younger kids. Jesse's 8. He's a 3rd grader now. Last year he was a 2nd grader. And Quinn's 5. She's, was finishing up VPK. Now she's going to be a kindergartner. It was just a challenge just from the technology standpoint, but they really did like when they got to see their friends and hear from their teacher. Honestly, from a parent's perspective, it was pretty nerve-wracking to tell them that, hey, we're making this choice that we believe to be in the best interest of you guys to homeschool you. And so Mandy and I talked about a lot of different ways to kind of, for lack of a better phrase, like sell it to them. But they are in love with it. Yesterday was actually the first quote-unquote official day of them home. Well, actually no, because today's Wednesday, so Monday is actually whenever we started kind of getting them up, getting them into the homeschool classroom and doing their thing. They love it. I think part of it, especially for Jesse, he gets to share Dad's office, with me.
Oh, yeah.
And Quinn loves being there with Jesse, so yeah, we're 2 days in, but it's good.
Nice. Fingers crossed, right?
Yes.
So what have you kind of been up to in general while all that stuff's been going on? So personal life, kind of touch on that a little bit, but professional, what's been going on in Josh Martin's world? Yeah,
it's been really, I hate using the term busy because that can just mean that you're doing a bunch of things that don't have any really, meaning to them. So, but it has been busy in the sense that there's been a lot of work. It's been very productive. So I think it's important to set the stage to let, the audience know, or maybe remind everybody like the different things that I have going on from a business perspective. So CFG is one entity. I also work for another company as a consultant called Two Brain Business. And what we do at Two Brain Business is we basically provide business mentorship to other gyms around the world. So I work with clients from Australia, New Zealand to all over Europe, Canada, all over North America. So I get the privilege of talking to a variety of different gym owners in all kinds of different circumstances. But essentially what our function is with them is to kind of scale them up to becoming successful, profitable, sustainable businesses. So that's my work that I do with Two Brain Business. And then just last year, I launched another company that is my own, called Two Brain Coaching. And I know the name sounds familiar. We are sister companies, but what we do at Two Brain Coaching is provide education, mentorship, and then certify fitness and nutrition coaches. So we have an online learning platform, and then they also get mentorship from coaches, just like I do with Two Brain Business, but from basically how to be a different coach.
Yeah. So
saying all that to say that all that has just been insanely crazy busy over the last several months. A lot of businesses have really, unfortunately, taken a massive downturn. A lot of businesses, and gyms in particular, have gone out of business for a variety of different reasons. But being a part of Two Brain Business, what that has allowed us to be in the fortunate position of is kind of seeing, what's going on across the world ahead of maybe what we're seeing here in North America, and then in particular in Florida, and using that to be well informed with the decisions that I make from a leadership perspective at the gym. I have talked to more gym owners throughout 24 hours a day, 7 days a week over the last, 6 months, more so than I probably have in the previous year. But it's been very good. Obviously, they're all just super amazing people to work with. They want to do similar things that we do. We want to build healthy and happy humans. And so playing even a small part in helping their businesses succeed long term, has been great. And CFG specifically is able to benefit from lessons that I've gotten from the gym clients that I work with, the coaching clients that we work with, things like that.
It's got to be cool to be a part of something like you mentioned, two-brain business, where you're mentoring people in these gyms all around the world, because it's almost like you're in this huge study, like research study, and it's almost like this insider group of, hey, here's what's happening in Australia, or here's what's happening in China, in terms of like current events, like what's going on in the world, and you can be an example or a leader on the front lines of, here are the best practices for what's going on in the world right now, and you can bestow that upon gyms all around the world to help them be successful.
Yeah, it's really powerful. You know, it's one thing to run a singular gym and say, you know, we're going to do this thing, excuse me, because, you know, I feel like it's the right thing to do, or that it's going to be the right move for our gym. But it's another thing to speak from a position of data and seeing what actually works and what doesn't work. And so we use that, you know, almost exclusively to inform all the decisions that we're making. So, for instance, at the beginning of COVID, when we could no longer deliver our services in person, we already knew that the best way for, first and foremost, the clients, but also the business to remain, you know, sustainable long term, was to continue to coach people. And the way that we did that was, you know, basically moving the coaching delivery online and digital, and leveraging technology and things like that. Which, to be quite honest, and you know this, we've talked about it, Mark, but it's like, it's actually nothing new. It's something that we've done, albeit on a much smaller scale, you know, with, you know, different athletes over the years that we've all worked with. So it wasn't like we were inventing anything new, but now we're just doing it on a much larger playing field.
Right. Now you mentioned that you had talked to a lot of people in the last 6 months, way more so than you would have in the last year, had this not happened otherwise. Are there any other like difficulties, or really anything that maybe became easier over the last 6 months in terms of juggling 3 different businesses or 3 different positions? So anything super difficult or anything super easy that you just found interesting?
From a difficulty perspective, I think what's been difficult to do is, I'll equate this to like working with members within the gym, you know, when they are going through difficult times. And I don't mean like, oh, the weight was heavy or I couldn't do this movement. I mean like real life type stuff, you know. We not only get to see the best of people, but the worst of them, and not like in a bad way, but just difficulties that they're going through in their life. Like as coaches, you know, you really shoulder some of that burden with them, and it weighs on you as a coach. And the same can be said for these gym owners that we work with that are going through, I mean, their businesses are literal like hours away from closing, and they are calling me, or they're calling one of our other mentors on the team to figure out like, hey, how can I make sure that this ship doesn't take on too much water and sink? That sits with you, so that's difficult. But through those challenges, you really find what works, and then more, kind of taking that a step further is like, okay, who's ready and willing and able to step up and be a leader? Because it's really easy to lead when things are going well. Right. You know, when clients are flooding your doors and more people coming in and all this kind of stuff, it's really easy to lead then. It's really difficult to lead. That's when real leadership shows up, is when things get hard, you know. Right. So that's definitely helped me personally with the 3 different businesses that I operate. Cool.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Switching gears a little bit, just because of some of the things we wanted to talk about. Mention, again, sound like a broken record, during COVID, during quarantine or lockdown or whatever we're going to call it, not being able to come in and work out at 9 a.m. You're able to do that now, and you've been pretty consistently the last couple of months. This is like our 14th week back at CFG.
It's crazy.
I know. I was like, it feels like we were just, first of all, closing and then reopening. So 14th week back, you're working out again. How you feeling?
I feel good. You know, I enjoyed working out at home way more than I thought. Now, obviously, what I said is I missed being able to come in here, and that still holds true. But what I missed about it was the people. I mean, that's irreplaceable. What I liked about working out from home is that, if coming to the 9 a.m., it's not like, it's not an hour. It's not, I show up right at 9 and I leave right at 10, right? So I leave, the house at 8:30 because I want to get here, mingle a little bit, warm up, do all those things, and I don't get back home until, let's just call it 10:30. So it's really a 2-hour commitment. Whereas at my house, when, you would send me my programming and tell me this is what you got to do today, I could go out in the garage and usually knock things out in 35, 40 minutes, so there's that benefit. But I think that probably the biggest benefit overall was my body just had time to kind of, heal, and not like I was banged up or injured or anything, but because we were doing, so many different type things than we're used to, I just feel great. I was able to, last week or the week before, we had a workout where, it was a Saturday workout. One of the last Saturday workouts that I came to, was able to do pull-ups, butterfly style pull-ups for the first time in probably a year and a half for that amount of volume. And then today we had chest to bar pull-ups. They felt great. Was able to snatch and do all these things without feeling like I was hampered,
Yeah.
And I think that what you realize when you do have those difficulties, at least me personally, is you suddenly become much more relatable to everybody else in the class. Like we're not immortal, by any stretch of the imagination. So, for people that listen that are going through difficulties, dealing with injuries, it's the biggest advice I would give is, just keep showing up.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I was actually going to ask you a question about your shoulder and how it felt during your at-home workouts, because I feel like, and you know this, you've been injured plenty of times, that that you can feel very lonely when you're injured.
It sucks.
Whether it's a back, a shoulder, a knee, no matter what it is, you said it perfectly. It sucks. There's no other way to put it. And I feel like a lot of people feel that way, but when I wish I could put on screen all the messages that I had rolling in during the at-home workouts, like you saying, "Hey, I'm able to snatch. Like this is you sent videos of you snatching to me one day, and you're like, this is the heaviest I've snatched in a long time. My shoulder feels good." Same thing. Someone's like, "Man, I was able to do, backpack or thruster or something that with my shoulder because it just feels better. My knee's feeling better. My back feels great." And I think that's not only shows the importance of working out at home, but also having something that's tailored to you, that's taking the pressure off of clicking whatever RX button or whatever standard that you're kind of looking at. And so I think it's really cool for you to say, as someone as fit as you are, saying, "Yeah, I was dealing with this and I came back and I'm better than I was 6 months ago."
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because another one of the benefits of doing stuff at home is, like, I didn't have a clock. There was really no RX weights. So I'm a pretty calculated workout person. So I have goals within the workout. What I want to do, how I want to progress, how I know my body should be able to adapt. And I was really just there with myself, and I've continued that ever since we've been back in the gym. That I'm aware of the clock and aware of what people are doing around me, but at the end of the day, it really gave me great perspective that when it comes to the workout part, it's just about me, and not even. Sometimes I think that we all get caught up into this idea that you just need to be better than you were yesterday, and yeah, I feel that way to a certain extent, but there was so many more days working out from home where the goal was just to move.
Yeah.
It didn't matter what I did, it was just to move. It wasn't to be better than I was yesterday. It was more I know movement is good for me. I know that it makes me a better leader, it makes me a better dad, it makes me a better husband. And so when you start to think about you know, your workouts or whatever, your training, whatever you want to call it, in those terms, the perspective really shifts, you know.
It's being the best you can today. Like not even today, in this instance. It's like, okay, what can I do right now? Like you said, be a better leader, better dad. What can I do right now that's going to make me better for the rest of today?
Yeah.
I might not be better than I was yesterday or tomorrow or a week from now. But if moving for 30 to 40 minutes is it, hey, I'm going to go do that, right? Because it feels good afterwards. It's always harder getting out in the garage and sweating, but you feel great afterwards. And it works.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, and we won't go down this rabbit hole. I should have had a disclaimer at the beginning of this podcast. You guys better strap in. We're going to be here for a while.
Yeah.
But, you know, there is a lot of, you know, positive chemical reactions that happen within the body when you do, you know, break a sweat and get your heart rate elevated and things like that. But you don't need to know all that. All you need to know is movement is good for you, and you should try to move well and move often. That's it. Like, that's really the recipe. It doesn't need to be, you know, anything bigger than that, you know. Which we'll get into more in depth, my thoughts on that later in the podcast, because that is a large part of, you know, what I want to talk about. So
yeah, we also have an episode, I think it's our third episode, called The Psychology of Coaching or Physical Activity.
It's a great plug.
Yeah, you should go check out one of our older episodes. People watching, people listening. So you did work out today.
Yep.
You did some chest to bar and some snatches.
Yep.
Any advice for later classes going into it, or any thoughts on the workout in general? Because it was a pretty high skill day.
Yeah, so these are the days that, what I mean by that these days, the ones that are like high skilled like this are the ones that I selfishly look forward to, because the high skill things are the ones that I excel at. Mm-hmm. And it feels good to go in and do well at a workout. Like, let's not, you know, kid ourselves about that. It does feel good to do those things, but yeah, it felt great. I actually shared a, you know, kind of a joking video with you, but for those that have seen Old School, there's the scene where Will Ferrell has to debate James Carville, and he kind of like blacks out and gives this amazing speech, and then wakes up and he's like, what just happened? And they're like, well, you killed it. That's kind of the way that I felt in the workout today. Like you said, 3, 2, 1, go. And no, all jokes aside, I felt good. You know, it's one of those you get done and you're like, man, I think that I executed it just about as well as I could. If I could give advice to anybody, it would be that just be honest with, you know, what your particular strengths are within the workout. If neither one of these are strengths, then you've got to just be in the mindset that you're here to come in and sweat a little bit, and that's enough, and that's okay. If you're somebody that can excel at this, then what I would say is it's okay to start out aggressively, because it probably is going to be the chest to bar that's just going to slow you down at some point, so you'll have an opportunity to breathe. You know, and then, you know, really strong people, you know, doesn't matter guy or girl, if you look at the barbell and you're like, oh, that's not even a thought, then my advice is just to be really aggressive, but do singles on that.
Cool.
Yeah.
How much did you, so you knew these movements favored you coming in today.
Right.
How recovered were you, percentage-wise, and how do you know how recovered you were?
Yeah, that's a great question. Oh, never mind, my phone's up there.
Oh, dang.
I'm pretty sure that my recovery, thanks to my little Whoop tracker, I think I was probably in like the 50% range, which is, you know, it's average. It's like they do things in red, yellow, green, and so obviously if you're in the green, you're pretty well recovered. I was more recovered than I thought I would be today, but that's the interesting thing about the Whoop. And I shot a couple of videos about that. You should go back and watch them if you haven't seen them. But we talk about like wearables and, you know, the usefulness of them. And if you have them, how can you use the data to be better informed? And really what I ultimately wanted to learn from these is the data that people look at and that they like to see, is that actually going to influence their behaviors, you know, and influence them to do things that maybe they might not otherwise have done in order to get a better sleep score, get a better recovery score, or something like that. So, yeah, I mean, came in feeling, you know, good. I don't really let the whoop dictate whether or not I'm going to attack a workout, but I'm also pretty self-aware internally. I'm very regimented, so Sheila and I used to joke about this all the time. Like, the two of us are so routine-oriented that if you wanted to assassinate us, you could literally pick out the time of day to the second where each of us would be, because we're so routine oriented. And so being that way, you know, I know how the body's going to react and feel 9 times out of 10.
Yeah. So you mentioned with the Whoop, how does it influence behavior change? Is that what you're primarily using it for? So you've been using it for 7 months?
Yeah, about 7 or 8 months now, yeah.
So originally when you bought it, you thought, how is this going to elicit behavior change in me, or how am I going to let this impact how much better I can feel, not only in the gym, but in general, just be more recovered, be a healthier person?
Yeah, so the way that I kind of view all of these things that we kind of do within the CFG space is like, I, you know, will test it on myself, or we'll test it on some of the staff as guinea pigs, and then you know, depending upon how that goes, then we will start, you know, maybe making recommendations or take it out to the group. So Jose was actually got on board using the Whoop a couple of months before I did. So him and I were kind of talking about it, and he still uses his, and then other people have kind of gotten on board. But yeah, the behavior thing is what I'm most interested in, because you know, people have been wearing Apple Watches and Fitbits and Garmin's and polar heart rate monitors and all this stuff
for years.
Yeah, exactly, for decades now. And so you would think with all this tech and this data and all this stuff that maybe our health metric data from a national perspective would be getting better.
Yeah. But
in fact, it's getting worse. So we're capturing all this data, but what is it actually doing from a behavior redirection standpoint? And so that's what I was most interested in. And so I have deliberately made some changes, like I'll stay up later, or I'll have a meal closer to bedtime, and to see if that affects my recovery or my sleep or anything like that. And in certain instances it has, but I think for me what has been most valuable is they send out really good content around, hey, here's why sleep is important, and here's how to maximize your sleep, here's why nutrition, and all those things. For the person who maybe they don't have their life centered around health and wellness, you know, I mean, owning a gym and talking to gym owners all day, every day, and all that kind of stuff, I'm not super convinced that it's enough to elicit long-term behavior change.
Interesting.
So
wow.
The jury's still out. We've got probably about a dozen people now at the gym that are using it.
Yeah. And
that'll really be like my questions that I would love to sit down and talk with them about. Is like, hey, if you see that your recovery score continues to be in the red and it's, you know, dog poop, are you making any changes, and then are you sticking with them long term? Like,
right.
It boils down to like habit change.
What have you changed, if anything, to improve your recovery or anything like that? So
actually, this is a funny one. I never thought about it until you just said it and I identified it. Is thank you for kicking that on.
Yeah,
is a lot of hot air coming in here. Is Monday through Friday, I'm very consistent. I go to bed about the same time. I wake up about the same time. But then like Saturday and Sunday, you know, Friday night I might stay up later, Saturday night I might stay up later, and so I would sleep later into the morning on Saturday and Sunday. The sleep amount was still relatively the same, but I really, I've started to kind of go down the rabbit hole of like, you know, better understanding like circadian rhythm and why it pays long term to go to bed and wake at the same time 7 days a week instead of just 4 or 5 or something like that. So that's honestly been the longest one, and it's crazy. I love it. I feel way more productive, not just Monday through Friday, but also Saturday and Sunday.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. We also did a sleep podcast episode if you want to check that out.
Oh, what number is that? We need to have notes whenever we're going to talk about it.
I don't know, man. If you just scroll down until you see the word sleep, it's like 30 something.
I wonder if not to interrupt you, but like, I wonder if my back looks as sweaty and soaking wet on camera as it feels right now.
Do you have
Holy
this?
moly. I've got it pulled up.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay.
Okay.
But no, that's cool that you've done that and realized that. In that podcast episode, I did bring it up for a reason, not just to plug it. We as in the podcast, me when I was talking there about sleep, I didn't go as in depth about circadian rhythm as even you just did. Just kind of about sleep cycles and how it's important to hit certain ones and how getting less sleep can yada yada yada. Go listen to the show. I'm not going to repeat it. Yeah, right. But that's really interesting that you've kind of done more research on your own to improve, the gym stuff's arbitrary, but your productivity overall, like as a person outside of it, that's really cool.
Yeah, I'm a big nerd. It's ironic that I have a company also called Two Brain Coaching, and I work as a mentor for Two Brain Business. But the name Two Brain basically means that like we have, two sides to the brain, and they're responsible for, pretty different functionalities. And it's not like a black and white. There is obviously a lot of gray area, but in general, like the right side of the brain, is where emotion, is where creativity and artistry and things like that come from. The left side is more analytical, logical, stuff like that. So I don't know if Mandy's listening to this podcast. I think she's only ever listened to maybe one, so I can say this, but like she jokingly refers to me in certain instances as an emotionless robot, because I do tend to be very like left-brained. I do a lot of research before I make decisions. I don't act out of emotion or anything like that. So it just fits me, and I like to kind of dig into things, but I'm also realistic too. Like I want to, because of the influence that we have, with our platform, if we make a recommendation, it carries a lot of weight, and I want to make sure that it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like if I say, hey, you should go do this squatting program, or go do this running program, or work on your mindset for this. I don't want to just blindly say it because there was one CNN article that said, oh, this is a new hot thing.
Right.
I don't even know why I said CNN. Like, I don't read or watch the news or any of that crap anyways. Before I forget, I did see that Edgardo made a comment here, and so I just want to make sure that we plug the right team and colors here, Edgardo. Let's not forget who the winners and who the losers are. All right?
Look at that.
Is it? Yeah, it'll show up.
It's showing right there.
Okay.
Look at that.
Wait, are you further ahead on yours than mine? Oh, you are. I need to hold on. Let me refresh mine.
Refresh that.
Yeah, let me see what is going on here.
What are you reading right now?
Oh, I thought you would never ask that question. All right,
we were just talking about reading and research so much. I just wanted you to elaborate on that. Sorry, you were talking to people.
Yeah. Hold on. I brought a handful of books that I've read and finished over the last, I don't know, this is probably since the beginning of COVID. So hold on one second while I put my mic down.
Now I gotta fill the air. Oh my gosh. Look at those books. Oh my gosh.
Okay. So there are five different books here. So Atomic Habits, I actually was on a podcast last week, ironically, and I referenced this book a lot. Atomic Habits is a book that I had wanted to read for about 18 months, and I've figured, hey, COVID happened, we're in lockdown, I don't want to just turn into a useless vegetable, so I decided to do a little bit more aggressive reading. So I picked that up, and I read like 10 to 12 pages a day, just in my normal morning routine, and I finished it in like 20 or 25 days. It was phenomenal. As soon as I got done reading it, I immediately went back and started rereading it. So I reference it a lot. I think what he does better than most, because there's been a lot of great books that have been written about like habit formation and sticking to things. But he frames them in such a way that it's not. What's the best way to describe this? It's not terribly intrusive into your life. You know,
cool.
It's not like this is the only way to do it, and if you can't do it this way, then you're a terrible person. So if setting goals and achieving them, or really anything in life, if like you want to develop a process, one of the things that he is great at illustrating is like, you don't, like if I write a blog post today, or if we record a podcast today, right? Let's use this actually. If we record a podcast like we are today, it doesn't automatically make us podcasters.
Right.
But what it does do is make one deposit into the bucket of becoming a podcaster, right? And so his idea is that every little step that you make is one more vote for the type of person that you want to be.
Okay.
So if you want to be the type of person that, or if you eventually want to be the person, that achieves these fitness goals, then the deposit that you need to make is like showing up and doing the work, whether that's from a nutrition perspective, a workout perspective, anything. So I like that one.
That's
wait, I'm colorblind and only see Knowles red. Well, if you can still see scoreboards, Edgardo, I would just go back and look at scoreboards. So, boom! And so that is what I read at the very beginning of COVID. The second one, now this is actually one, it's called Primal Branding. I introduced this to you guys at one of our staff meetings recently. It has probably the most terrifying cover of a book that I've ever seen, so I will show this to everybody looking at this. And if you're just listening, if you're one of our 4 consistent listeners on podcast forum, just look up the cover for this. It's actually, this is not the cover that Amazon shows you whenever you go to buy it, probably because no one would want to buy it.
Yeah.
But it is terrifying. So this was a book that I got recommended to me like 2.5 years ago, and I just never, pulled the trigger and read it. And then finally, a great friend of mine finally said, "Hey, did you ever read that?" And I said, "Nope." And I ordered it, and I read it in like 2 days. It was just a really, really good read. I don't want to get into the weeds on this one, but it was a really cool look at, companies that have made long-term impact, on culture or on the world in a positive way. They do 7, what they call what do they call it? Hold on. Maybe I'll just crack the book open here, Mark. Oh, there's 7 pieces to the primal code that all these companies get right. And so obviously I'm looking at it from a leadership perspective of the gym and of two-brain coaching. What do we need to do for that? So that was a really cool one. I've got a huge whiteboard at my house. I think everybody's probably seen it one time or another, where I brainstormed all these ideas. And for people that are followers of CFG or members of CFG, you'll start to see the fruits of that labor, as 2020, continues its either uphill or downhill screening. So that was the first 2, Atomic Habits and Primal Branding. And then these last 2 are my most recent finishes. And you know me well, Mark, that I've always got a bunch of books. And so this first one is Excellence Wins. And then the other one is The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis. Cool. So I read both of these while we were on vacation in Asheville.
Which was only a week, by the way. That was 2 books in a week. To me, that's impressive.
Yeah, so I mean, we were kind of up in the woods in a cabin, so I would read for an hour and a half or 2 hours every day. So Excellence Wins. I've actually had this book for a couple months, but I knew that I wouldn't be able to put it down. So I saved it until we got to the cabin in Asheville, and I wasn't wrong. It was phenomenal. So Excellence Wins is written by this guy named Horst Schultz, and he is one of the co-founders of the Ritz-Carlton Hotel Group. And being in the hospitality industry, it's very parallel to like what we do here at the gym. So it was really neat to hear his story of like, how he began the process of creating probably like the best experienced hotel chain in the world. Ironically, I've actually never been to one, but after reading that, it's like a mission of mine to go, Mandy and I, to stay a night at the Ritz somewhere. So
cool. Drop us a knowledge bomb. What's something he said?
Something that he said? I don't know that it's anything that he said. It's specifically like a quotable that sticks out to me.
Or anything he wrote about in the book that kind of stood out.
Okay, so actually no. This is a great story. So he empowers every employee, no matter the level that they are at in the company, to go above and beyond. And hold on, just a quick disclaimer before I tell this story. I'm not saying that this is something that is feasible for a small company like CFG to do, but it is. There is some really cool lessons within it. Anyways, so he made a rule that everybody, no matter the level of employee that they are at his hotel group, to go above and beyond to basically wow a customer if they have an issue. So the story that he tells is at one of the Ritz in Atlanta, customer had checked out, gone back home, called the hotel and said, hey, I left my laptop in my hotel room and I've got a presentation. This was on like a Saturday. I've got a presentation on Monday and all my files are there. Is there anything that we can do about getting this thing back? So the customer service person that took this call, everybody from the janitor up to the CEO has a discretionary budget of $2,000 to fix whatever is going wrong with the customer. So the customer located the laptop, went online, booked a flight to deliver this person's laptop right back to them.
Wow.
Now the kicker is where this person was located. Remember, the laptop was in Atlanta. The person was in Hawaii.
Wow.
So this person booked a flight from Atlanta to Hawaii, delivered the laptop, got on the very next flight, and flew back.
Wow.
All under $2,000.
Wow. Hope he got a bonus.
Yeah, and so like Horst obviously uses that as like, hey, here's what we mean by taking care of the customer and going above and beyond for them. And so, of course, from a leadership perspective, it gives me pause for reflection of like, how can we be, doing things even 1% better, not fly to Hawaii and back better, but like just 1% better. And so, yeah, that was really cool.
That is awesome. That's really cool.
So that was that one, and then this last one, The Fifth Risk by Michael Lewis. I don't know if you guys can see that, but you can look it up. So Michael Lewis is also the guy who wrote Moneyball, which is the movie that, as you know, Brad Pitt starred in.
Yes, Jonah Hill.
Jonah Hill was also in that movie.
Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Was he in that? Oh yeah, he was the manager. The manager. Yeah, in baseball, manager.
Oh, sorry.
But they do have coaches, but that guy was the manager. Anyways. That's besides the point. So The Fifth Risk, we actually went to a little bookstore in Brevard, just outside of Asheville, and I like his writing style. He's kind of like an investigative journalist, but this was written in 2018, and it's basically about the transition that takes place when one president is on the way out and the next one is on the way in. So the transition of like, not just the nuclear codes, but how does the Department of the Interior operate? What do they actually do? How does the Department of Agriculture function? All these different things, commerce and defense and things like that. The Department of Energy and overseeing the power plants. And anyways, he gives a really cool look into kind of how it was bottled. I mean, I'm not going to get into politics here. I don't care which way people sway. That's not what this is about. Yeah. But if you're interested in the inner workings of like our government, which I didn't think that I really was, but after reading this book, it's really, really cool. I would recommend you reading that. I think Jim Godin from Exos may have actually read this on his trip. So.
He's got some good recommendations too.
He does. We've traded books.
Yeah, he's a reader. He's a reader. That's awesome. All of those books sound really intriguing. I might just have to borrow them from you for 4 years.
Yeah, no, the last book that you actually took from me was the Habits book, and I think you had it for like 9 months.
Yeah, I know that
so
one.
clearly your habit was not reading.
I read The Culture Code. You lent me The Culture Code. That
Such a good book.
That one's really good.
Yeah.
Power of Habits, really good. Yeah, great books. I trust your recommendations, so I added those to the Amazon wish list. Which Amazon started by selling books.
Man, that is still mind blowing. That's all this guy did, and then now he's, anyways, he's the richest human in the world.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos. So overall, like, there are things you can take away from each of the books you read. Reading in general, what's kind of like, why do you do it? What's the takeaway to why like you just said, it's not a habit of mine. It's something that I've been striving to be better at for years.
Yeah.
So what's your takeaway from making it a habit and doing it every day?
So growing up, and I'm sure my mom can corroborate this story, when I was younger, before I could read, I know my mom in particular used to read to me all the time, like every single day. She would just read one of those little kids books, right? But when it got to the point where I was in school, I hated reading. I really just did not enjoy it. Even through high school, when I had to just read a ton, didn't enjoy it at all. When I got into college, I had already surpassed all my reading and writing requirements, and I didn't have to read at all, which was amazing, except for like textbooks and stuff like that. So I just didn't.
Yeah.
Got out of school, still didn't enjoy reading unless it was like Flex magazine or something. So never really picked up the bug. But my granddad in particular would always send me a book for Christmas or for my birthday or something like that, and I was like, oh, thanks, and then it would just go on a shelf to never be touched. Although I have actually gone back and read all those books now, and holy cow, I wish I would have read them decades ago. But I don't know. It was a couple of years. Maybe it was the first year of owning the gym. I just picked up a book and I was like, oh well, I actually enjoyed this. And I actually don't read a lot of fiction. Most of the stuff that I read is nonfiction. And I just have an affinity for learning new things, diving deeper into a topic, or actually going completely against like maybe some beliefs that I have, and I want to see things from somebody else's perspective, so I try to look for things like that. Now, of course, if you were to look at my full library, my office right now, you'd probably say, man, a lot of this stuff leans towards like leadership or self-help or something like that, but it's not really so much for me as it provides more tools in my toolbox to help people, so when I being able to tell that story about like excellent customer service, like as the head coach here, you probably get your wheels turned on like, man, what are some ways that we can do things better for the members at CFG? And so that's kind of the way that I look at it, and I do just thoroughly enjoy it. I think that's the biggest things that I get out of it. Like it is just an enjoyment thing. Now, there are certain things that I read where I hope to like get something that is going to make me take action. And so that's a very different kind of reading. So like Primal Branding, I went into it knowing like, okay, I have this expectation. I know that I'm going to need to take some sort of action after it, but that's not the bulk of my reading. Like, I would say that most of us probably have enough information around in our heads that you don't need more to take action on. My friend Brendan Collins, he owns a gym in Ohio, and he's a huge Florida fan. Actually, he's not, but I always tease him about it. He's an Ohio State fan, which coincidentally, they're part of the first conference to say that they don't want to have college football this year, but that's a topic for another day. He coined a term when I started working with him as a mentor last year called infobesity, because he would read and read and read and read in the hopes that it would manifest something in him to take action, and yet he never would. It was just like a gateway to the next book. Yeah. And I think a lot of people can fall into that trap, especially for like business owners or executives, is like, oh, if I just read another book, we'll have our big breakthrough, and that's not the case. Like, just pick one and actually take action on it, and you're probably going to have a lot of success with it.
Yeah, absorb and enjoy it.
Yeah.
Instead of just looking at it as a checkbox.
Yeah,
So you're just
exactly.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is, let's see, let me look at my notes. We've covered a lot so far. We've covered a lot.
It flies by, man. That's why we're going to do more of these.
I know. I like having you on the show. How often are you going to be on it?
So, I would love to do this kind of stuff on a weekly basis, to be honest.
Yeah.
And I'll kind of share a bit of why. Is I've got a sneaky suspicion that there are a lot of people like us that enjoy the same things, that would both benefit from being in community with CFG, and that we would also benefit from having them in here. And so what I found that in order to do that is that I, from a leadership perspective, have to be more open and sharing and talk about, what the vision that I have for, CFG is long term. Because the more and more that I talk about these things, and I'm just speaking for me specifically, it's the analogy that I always use with other business owners is when your ideas are out there, or your vision, or things that you're working on, it's like you're waving a flag that says like, hey, if you are down with these kinds of things, like this is a community for you, and so essentially what I want to do is create a community of people that I want to do life with, I mean, and it doesn't have to be, and this is probably, not to start down this rabbit hole too early, but like, that's probably the biggest thing when it comes to CFG that people will notice over time is it becomes much more than like your workout or your nutrition or anything else. And given that, I always loathe when people say like, oh, it's just a gym. Like, gosh, it's like, it's not. And here's the problem with that is, let's say that, somebody hears about us or sees somebody wearing a shirt, or, somebody's talking about the impact that CFG has had on their life, and they're like, man, I want to learn some more. And they go online and look it up, or they walk in and they just see it as like a fitness place, and they're not like a workout person.
Right.
I don't want that to turn somebody off to not be a part of this community.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really know what all that looks like, really clearly, but like that's really where my heart is. And so to circle back to your initial question, I want to be on here more and do it from at least a weekly basis, because I mean it's very easy for us to talk for 50 minutes,
Yeah.
And not everybody is going to listen to it all the way through, or not everybody is going to take immense value from it. But even if one person does, like that's enough for me.
Okay. Cool. What are these podcasts going to entail?
Oh man, so I actually have a really cool like little spreadsheet that I drew up.
The spreadsheet's being busted out.
Okay, so long term, we are going to have a lot of stuff happening at the gym. Like every weekend, we're going to have something going on. So, and one of the things that we'll do is when we get together and chit chat is we'll recap. Like, hey, this is what just happened over the weekend. We did this outreach event. We hosted these kids. We talked to these families. We, made this impact in the community, because we have such an amazing group of people that we are with. So one is looking back on all the amazing things that just happened. The other is looking forward to what's coming up, this next weekend. So, do we have an open house, coming up? Are we doing a community outreach? Are we hosting teenagers for something? So we're going to talk about, things that are upcoming that people can obviously become involved in. And so, like, here's a great example. We talk about these announcements all the time in class, but, we've got a new clinic for the Olympic weightlifting movement, the clean and jerk, coming up with Gene. in just a couple of weeks, and it would help if I actually knew the dates, so maybe you can...
Saturday, September 12th from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. We have a clean clinic with Coach Gene. The link to sign up for that is in Wallify.
Okay. See? So, I mean, we can talk about things like that.
Boom.
And then we also have, Coach Steph is doing her Nutrition Challenge Reset, which is going to be starting on...
Monday, September 14th, 28-day Nutrition Challenge, running until October 11th.
Also, link in the show notes and link in the Wallify and all those things.
Yeah.
I think, isn't that what, professional podcasters, you can find this in the show notes.
Yeah, show notes. I think that's really just the description.
I remember
researching.
Show notes.
Yeah, show notes. Description. Alright?
Yeah.
Podcaster.
Yeah, so, that'll be, that will be a part of it. I want to share more. I think that there is immense value in talking about all the things that are going on and that I have a vision for. I think it people, maybe not everybody likes the book thing, but if somebody picks up another one of these books and gets value from it, then I think that's cool. So we could talk about what I'm reading. So there are a lot of things to discuss. And sometimes it's very easy for me, especially when I'm at my home office, to just say, I'll talk about that tomorrow, or I'll talk about that next week, or we'll talk about that next time.
Right. Versus
if we have it set in stone, hey, Tuesdays from this time to this time, we're going to be broadcasting live, we're going to record a podcast. At the end of the day, I want to invite more people in. And I was reading a good article on a church website, not the one that we go to, but a different church website the other day, and they talked about the contrasting difference between... Actually, let me find it, because I don't want to butcher this. Let's see. Stand by, people.
Ew, I can check the comments.
Yeah, you check the comments while I find this quote.
Oh, Rob says, man, you guys are still talking.
That's right, Rob. Come on. Don't act surprised. You're just lucky I have a whiteboard and a marker. Okay, so what they describe is basically, there's a couple of different ways to create culture in a business, right? And obviously in this case we're talking about a church, but I think it's very applicable to what we do. And so it's a mindset shift, or having a posture of, I would like to include you in this, to we can't do this without you.
Right.
So
that makes sense.
We'd like to include you in this. Sounds like great. Yeah, I want you in on this. But it's much more compelling when I tell you, man, I want you in on this, but I can't do it without you. Mm-hmm. And the only way that people realize that is, one, me saying it, and then us living it out. Is doing more things. What's that look like?
What can you said there's so much you want to share. What can you share? What's on the horizon?
Okay.
Is your vision any different? Is there anything like that you want to share? Are there events you want to share?
In my head, it's no different, but it's instead of being kind of out of focus, it's gotten a lot more clarity, and I think that that's a huge, from a leader perspective for me through COVID, that has been very helpful. I was talking to somebody about this a couple weeks ago, but the notion, and I mentioned it earlier, that it's we're just a gym, so if it doesn't relate to working out or nutrition, then that's not really for us. And man, that's just not what I want, mm-hmm. right? And I'll give you a great example. I kind of shared this with you, a little bit the other day, is I think that we have a massive opportunity to help so much more with the platform that we've been given. So, you guys log off here because it seems like Josh has gone crazy, then I totally get it. But I just talked about this in the group on Friday. Margaret and I, last October, we went out to lunch and we were talking about her with the teen program, and kind of the ideas that she had for it and the growth potential that she had. And it was really, really exciting. And like now we're to that point, like the teen program is now going to open up, you know, another 2-day class for these guys, which is amazing. But I can't help but think, especially being a parent, and you parents will probably get this, but there's more that we can do. And so, and these are just brainstorms, right? And there's a difference between being the person with the vision and then executing it and then making it become a reality. And that's where, like, the team, you guys come into play, right? So, kind of prefaced it. So I have this idea that every kid, because they're all going to get to a point where they can drive at some point. You know, a lot of what I like to talk about is automobile, right, enthusiast type stuff.
Yeah.
I think every kid should know how to change their tire on their car.
Okay.
So I had this thought, and I was like, man, like, we should teach kids how to do that. Like, we should do, like, hey, on Saturday from 10 to 2, you know, bring your car up here, and we're just going to have a workshop for teens, you know, and we're going to call it life skills or whatever, right? But we're going to teach you how to change your tire. Because, as you well know, if you blow your tire out on the side of the highway, Mark,
you're going to learn the hard way.
It's helpful to know, and if you don't, you better know how to make a phone call. So, and I actually thought about this before you shared your recent event with me. You know, so that's like one thing. Jose will appreciate this. I also think that you should know how to wash your car, and there is there is a wrong way and a better way, right? And so so just little things like that, you know. I also think that it would be neat because we have so many kids that come through our program that then go off to college, but like, what about when it comes time to fill out college applications, you know? I think it would be really cool to have a workshop where we walk them through the process, whether it's with or without mom and dad. Like, so I think that there is a lot more there, and the opportunity that our platform has in this community, I think that there is way more potential than just say, come do thrusters and pull-ups and then eat some vegetables. Now, I'm not negating the importance of that, but that's not the only thing.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
That is, like you said, it's much bigger than, and it doesn't like shock me to hear because I know how you are as a person, as a leader, but it's very cool and exciting to think that we as CFG could be that for somebody.
Yeah.
Something that's more than, like you said, hey, come in, exercise for an hour. When you're not here, the other 23 hours of the day, eat your vegetables and
right.
meat and vegetables, some, you know, all that stuff.
Right.
So it's exciting, man. It's cool.
Yeah, and I think that in order to do this the right way, I have to come here and talk more about it because it helps me to like talk through these things and get people to ask questions. Well, like, how's that going to work? Like, I don't know, but I know that it's the right thing. And so like the right thing is always the right thing, you know. And we could figure it out. Like, I'm not concerned about that, but the more open that I am, the more that we invite people to be a part of this with us. I mean, who knows where this thing can go long term, you know?
Stephanie's really good at that. So how's that going to work? So, you know, you got all these ideas and then...
Oh, yeah, I'm sure. She's probably having a heart attack right now. Like, holy crap, what more work did you just sign us up for?
Yeah, whenever we have ideas, she is always right there. We're like, all right, that's an awesome idea. How's it going to work? And I'm like,
Oh, and it's not just her, right? It's like Mandy. Like, I was sharing some of this stuff with Mandy, and she's like, what does that look like? I'm like, I don't know. Like, how's it going to happen? I don't know. But, you know, 9.5 years ago when I said, you know, I want to do this thing called Open a Gym, you know, and here's what it looks like in my head, you know, well, how's that going to happen? I don't know, but here we are.
Yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not to say that, like, we're not going to plan things and execute, like, yes, but, like, right now, I don't know all the X's and O's. I just know that this is the right thing, and this is how we can continue to have a kingdom impact.
Nice.
Yeah.
As far as notes go, that's all I really had. Is there anything that you kind of wanted to add, or anything that you didn't get to talk about the last hour and...
How long are we in? An hour and 15?
Hour and 6 minutes.
Hour and
7
6. Okay, so we still got some time.
We got some time. We could always open the floor.
Yeah, I mean, if people have questions, for sure, you guys can start, post them there if you have anything.
I think we're at 3 viewers. It says 3, and I think 2 of them are you and I. So if you are the lone viewer, you're getting called out.
Is that Rob? Rob was the last one to comment. I don't know if he's still watching though. But no, I mean, here's what'll happen is we'll say, okay, that's it for today, and then 20 more ideas are going to come into my head.
Yeah.
And that'll be fodder for next weekend.
Tina.
Or next week.
Next week, yeah.
Yeah, next week.
Tina and Heather are here.
Oh, like in the gym or online?
I don't think they might be in the gym. I don't know, the door's closed, but they are definitely online.
Yeah, the only other thing maybe to say is that not only will this, you and I talking about these things and talking through them and all the happenings of the gym, but the other thing that I'm going to do is probably not live, maybe live, I don't know, but what it'll look like, but I'm gonna go through and start interviewing everybody at the gym, because I think that it's important for everybody's story to be heard. And I don't mean like, oh, you had a PR or, your transformation story, and don't get me wrong, that's super, super important and you should be celebrating those things. But where'd you grow up? For instance, Marc, have you ever told people what franchise your family used to be a part of when you lived in Pennsylvania?
I mean, I might have talked about it on here once or twice, and then if it comes up in conversation.
And what was it?
Dairy Queen.
Dairy Queen. Did you guys know that Marc's family used to own, was it one Dairy Queen?
One Dairy Queen.
One Dairy Queen. So, but anyways, things like that. And so I think that having people's stories out there, again, we talk about that, waving that flag concept is wait a minute, I used to own a Dairy Queen, or I love Dairy Queen. Well, maybe, I would like being a part of what they're doing too. So, I just think that getting more of that stuff out there is super important. And this is not going to be, I need to say this very deliberately, this is not going to be a plug for CFG. Tell me about your, challenges you were having before and successes that you've had now. We'll probably talk about those, but really, I just want to sit down and chop it up with people because I really enjoy this format.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easy. It's an easy format because how much, like you said a couple minutes ago, we can sit down and talk for 50 minutes. It's easy for us to do that, and I think it's easy to sit down with somebody and just have a genuine, raw conversation.
Yeah.
And let them be heard and do that. Did you see Heather's comment?
I did, and so this is the point, right? Is so. I think most of you guys by now know or have heard of Heather. If you haven't, Heather was actually the first person that came on to coach here at CFG years ago. She literally saved me from going crazy, getting up, at the god-awful crack of dawn to coach all the early morning classes. But she was the one that initially took over and became such a tremendously integral part of taking the culture that was just me at the beginning and spreading that around, within the class and the people that she impacted. So she became a huge part of the culture here at CFG, right? Now, part of Heather's perfect day, and we actually talked about this day one that she came on board, was her, by trade, she's a pediatric physical therapist. So we all knew that the long game was for Heather to get a full-time job, probably not here, but that was the goal. And so we always knew that was on the horizon. But like she said, is she still wants to be a part of CFG, even from the other side of the country. And Alicia, she's still a part of the community, and she's up in Canada. We've got Claudia that lives out in has been in California for a while and been across the country with the military. Like, there's so many of these people that I know that there is an opportunity for them to still have an impact on the greater CFG community. You don't have to just live here to do that. But then, I want those people to still be a part of it, even if they don't show up here for physical workouts. It's so much more than that,
Yeah.
And so, again, I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know that this is the direction that we're heading, and hopefully everybody listening wants to play a part. That's all I got.
Thanks for coming on, man. This
was
a lot of fun. I really like being on this with you.
I was glad that you had some free time, and we're open to doing it so quick. So my plan is, let's just write it in stone, that we will, I know this is Wednesday, but I actually had it in my schedule as Tuesday Talks with Josh. So maybe next Tuesday will be the next day that we go live.
Sounds good to me.
That's all I got. Thank you for your time today, Mark, and everybody else.
Of course, thank you to everybody that tuned in. Thank you to Josh, of course, for being on the show. If you guys have any quick... thank you for listening, if you're listening, watching, if you watched. When or if you go to listen to this on iTunes or SoundCloud, just leave a 5-star review. It really helps the podcast grow so we can reach more people and impact more people. That's awesome. Of course, it'll be shared on Facebook, and we can share that with people and get that out so we can reach more people. Thank you guys for listening, especially if you listen to the whole thing. And
I have one more thing to say, actually, real quick. If you know that you are ready to talk to me on the podcast, then just reach out. Email me, josh@coachingforglory.com, or post in the comments. Even Heather, you live in Colorado, we can do it on Zoom. So let's get these things rocking and rolling.
Nobody too proud to just be like, hey, I want to talk. Just say, hey, I want to talk. That's all you have to say. And we'll get you on the show. So, Tina says 5 p.m. represent. Tina, I'll see you in 2.5 hours. Awesome. All right. Cool. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everybody. This was episode number 41 of The Art of Coaching. Until next time, bye-bye. Bye.